Stephanie Jones and Blake Lively have been very busy trying to bury Justin Baldoni's legal team in court cases in an effort to deflect from the fact that I think they have very bad cases. And so they are trying to pile on and get as many people to sue Brian and Melissa to sort of show that this smear campaign that didn't happen actually exists, because without it, their cases fall apart, right? But if they can say, well, everyone else is doing it. Yeah. One of those cases happens to be one that was filed in 2025 against Brian Friedman from the surviving spouse of a former client of Brian Friedman that he represented when that client sued Justin Baldoni for copyright infringement. And the surviving husband said that he had breached his privacy. He had defamed Travis Flores and basically saying that he broke his duty as an attorney and it was malpractice. The statute of limitations when this all came out, I told you had already passed. And I also had told you that you cannot slander someone who's passed away. Once someone has died, claims of defamation stop because there's no reputation that would remain of someone that's no longer here. Sad as that is, it's true. And the case was filed and I thought, God, this is so weird. Like, what are the chances that this guy that passes away tragically from cystic fibrosis, his partner would file a lawsuit just on their own, like for no reason, no prompting or anything? And then I was told about there was like this text message between Mr. Reynolds, Brian Reynolds, and one of the reps adult me basically saying, you know, we've been getting all kinds of messages from people that work with Baldon in the past, and man, he's done a number on people. And I remembered there was like conversations about different people that had sued him and all the problems he had had on his sets in the past. So I felt like this is a coincidence when Travis Flores' surviving spouse then shows up in 2025 and wants to sue him almost instantly. Brian Friedman, that is. So, I talked about the case when it was filed. I told you guys I didn't think there was much to it. It's terrible. It's so sad for the remaining spouse. I really feel bad for them. And I also feel like they've been taken advantage of by Lively or whoever is nudging them to think that this is a good idea. Because Brian Friedman replied to the defamation, breach of contract, you know, all of the allegations against him by the surviving spouse. And in his answer, he actually provided proof and a copy of the settlement agreement when he served as Travis Flores' attorney suing Justin Baldoni for copyright infringement. And the evidence shows that Brian didn't really have any touch much at all with Justin Baldoni. Most of his contact was through CBS because this was an in-production with CBS, Lionsgate, and Wayfair Studios. And that the agreement was made after they had sent like 1,500 pages and all kinds of documents that showed that the screenplay were not even remotely similar, and that the theory they had that Baldon had gotten access to Travis Flores' Mr. Flores' screenplay was not true. So they filed what's called a move to strike, and it's an anti-slap. And so they're basically, Brian in January told the court in California that some of these claims are barred by statute of limitations. They emerge from the speech and conduct in connection with judicial proceedings. They are all causes of action that arise from speech on problems of public interest. Privacy and defamation claims cannot be claimed by a descendant state. Defamation cannot be claimed for someone that's dead. Unfortunately, and the invasion of privacy also fails because he didn't actually say anything that invaded anyone's privacy. And he says that he didn't even speak to or say Travis's name when he was asked a question about it. And he also to invoked claims are circumscribed by absolute fair report protection. Litigation privilege bars liability for his comments to the media, and the contract and fiduciary duty and malpractice claims fail for other reasons there. First is that it assumes that the defendants defended Flores and Baldoni at the same time, which he did not. Its subsequent representation of Baldoni was not in the same matter, nor is the Lively Baldoni litigation substantially connected to the matter in which he represented Flores. And Freeman did not share any of Flores' confidential or attorney-client privileged information to anyone. And because the contract malpractice and fiduciary duty claims are based in part on his alleged public statements about Flores' reputation and character, they fall within a defamation. So what Brian Friedman ended up doing was he wrote a declaration, which I think is pretty telling. Okay. He says that after the litigation was launched, the defendants in the Flores litigation explained that they did not have access to Mr. Flores' script and that 5D Apart was independently created. On October 18, 2021, I got a detailed letter from David Grossmanquire, who was the counsel for CBS Films, Lionsgate Entertainment, Wayfair Entertainment, and Justin Baldoni in the Flores litigation. The letter explained that his client's lack of access to Mr. Flores' script, or 3 feet distance, and their independent creation of 5 feet apart in detail. Also highlighted in detail, and they also highlighted Mr. Baldon's charity work. A true and correct copy of that letter is attached. After they got that letter in the Flores litigation, the defendants produced documents in support of their independent creation and lack of access stances. In particular, Embry Genetics Corporation produced nearly 1,500 documents, none of which contained any evidence that Embry had shared Mr. Flores' script with any third party, including Mr. Baldoni. Such materials were not available to me or Mr. Flores before the Flores litigation was started. After multiple stipulations to extend the response deadline, and after providing time to review the evidence provided, Embry moved to dismiss the complaint for failure to state a claim. On March 9th, the parties in the Flores litigation entered into a non-confidential settlement deal that settled all the claims in the litigation, and then he sent a copy of that and attached it. And he says, I first met Mr. Baldoni in late December 2024, more than 2 years after the litigation was dismissed. Mr. Baldon retained me and my firm as his counsel a few days later, in connection with litigation adverse to Blake Lively and others. The Flores litigation and Lively Ballon litigation are not at all similar. In January 2025, the media publications covering the Lively Ballon litigation reached out to comment on a publicly available fact that I had previously represented Mr. Flores against Mr. Baldoni in an entirely separate matter in 2021. I responded with a statement that did not mention Mr. Flores, and I did not base any part of my statement on any information, confidential or otherwise, that I obtained from Mr. Flores. My statement summarized the non-confidential terms of the Flores settlement and information obtained from the defendants, not from Mr. Flores, in the course of the Flores litigation. My statement was also based on information I learned about Mr. Baldon's heavy involvement in charity work, including the fact that his production company, Wayfair Entertainment, had set up a foundation for charity purposes. And then he has a copy of that statement as Exhibit 3. And then he says, I am informed and believe that on January 30th, Clement, who is the spouse, who I understand to be Mr. Flores' surviving spouse and the administrator of his estate, asked my office for a copy of his legal file from the Flores litigation. In response to the request, I understood that my office provided Mr. Asoy with a thumb drive holding approximately 635 megabytes of data, including pleadings, document production, written correspondence, invoices, agreements, and electronic communications. He confirmed receipt of the thumb drive on February 14, 2025, and I understand that 175 of the 236 emails contained in the file were communications with opposing counsel. Neither I nor my firm has ever represented Mr. Asoy. Neither I nor my firm ever concurrently represented Mr. Flores and Mr. Baldoni. And the statement that they claim is defamatory is I learned that they did absolutely nothing wrong, and that there was no liability on their part whatsoever. As a result, the case was closed without any liability on Justin's or Wayfair or any other defendant's part. This only further confirmed to me that Justin and Wayfair are extremely honorable and highly ethical. So he said nothing about Travis. He didn't say anything about Travis's personality. He didn't even say his name. He basically just stated the facts of the case. Okay. And he didn't say that Travis was a bad guy or lacking ethics. He wasn't asked about Travis's past. So the letter that they cite in here is from CBS, and it's from Lowe & Lowe, and they say that they have investigated the claims in their letter and complaint, and they can assure you and Mr. Flores that his work was not copied in any way. Rather, our investigation confirmed, as Mr. Flores knows the film was inspired by Claire Wideland, a cystic fibrosis patient, who is featured in Wayfair's web series My Last Days. Neither Baldwin nor the film screenwriters ever knew of, much less accessed, the Flores screenplay, and therefore could not have used it in order to make the film. Your letter and complaint speculate that he got access to the screenplay through the individual named Caleb Remington. However, the documentary evidence establishes that Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Remington did not even meet until after the first draft of the film screenplay, which contained virtually all the elements of the film that Mr. Flores pleads are similar to elements of his screenplay and had already been written. This evidence conclusively establishes that the film was independently made and its authors could not have seen, let alone copied, any element protectable or otherwise from the Flores screenplay. Further, a review of the works in questions showed that there's no legally cognizable substantial similarity between them. Any small similarities between them works stem from the fact that both center on teenage characters suffering from serious diseases, CF in the film, and various other maladies, terminal diseases, including CF in the Flores screenplay. And both contain certain stock elements that flow naturally from this unprotectable subject matter, or from a teenage relationship genre in general. So they go into to explain that Claire Wineland was basically, she passed away in 2018 after she had problems from a double lung transplant. She suffered a stroke, but Baldoni met her while he was working on My Last Days. But he had found her because she was doing this series with the Clarity Project or something, which was this educational group that put together material for people going through, terminal illness. And he amplified one of her videos and just said this woman was amazing. And then he met her through that and he featured her in one of the episodes of My Last Day. And it says, Miss Wineland was remarkably charismatic and energetic, and she developed a substantial social media following. Like the film's main character Stella, Miss Wineland chronicled her hospital stays and medical treatments on her YouTube page, with many of Wineland's videos gaining millions of views. And after meeting and befriending Miss Wineland, Mr. Baldoni came up with the idea of a film about the experiences, troubles, and emotions of a young CF patient, which depicts the challenges and drama of being an ordinary teenager filled with life, love, and energy, while also struggling with an often fatal disease. So after meeting her and befriending her in April of 2016, he pitches this idea to CBS, and then a few months in 2016. And then a few months later, in August of 2016, he formally engaged to develop and direct a feature film based on the pitch. And then he brought in two writers, Mickey Dree and Tobias Ikonis, and they were hired to draft the script. And in January 2017, Miss Linland was retained to act as a consultant for the film. So Travis Flores was a part of My Last Days as well. And I don't know that Baldoni ever really got close to Flores, but it sounds like his relationship with Claire was one that was solid. And they never had a falling out. When she passed away, he gave her a heartfelt tribute. She was always very positive about her working relationship and her friendship with him. And it says that by March 22nd of 2017, they had completed the draft, the first draft of the film's screenplay. Notably, virtually every element from the film that the complaint identifies as purportedly being similar to Flores' screenplay was already present in this first draft. Among other things, the March 17, 2017 draft features a tear-jerking romance story between Stella and Will, two 17-year-old CF patients. Also present the draft is Stella's platonic best friend, Poe. The March 2017 draft eventually reveals that Stella's sister, Abby, passed away a year earlier, and she suffers from severe survivor's guilt, which fuels her desire to strictly adhere to the safety rules imposed upon CF patients. And her memory plays a meaningful role throughout the draft and is embodied by keepsakes such as her artwork and stuffed panda that she had given Stella when she was very young. So it says that he speculated that he received a copy of the screenplay from Mr. Remington. This is not just untrue, it's chronologically impossible. He did not even meet Mr. Remington until late April 2017, after the above allegedly similar elements were already embodied in the film's draft. So apparently Remington had reached out to him, and they actually attach a copy of the email where Mr. Remington is introduced to Baldoni, and they even go through the the plot points of what this film was about and they compare it to like Travis's screenplay, and the films could not be any more different, like at all. Travis's is about a kid that goes to a camp, and it's like a sleepover camp for sick teenagers. He's like never gone to there before. He needs to make friends, and it has all these different experiences that are going on there. And the main character is a boy, and in Five to Part, it's a girl. The two plots look completely different, and it's clear that the Stella character is very much inspired by Claire. And they put them side by side to show that like 5 Feet Apart is about a girl that chronicles her life on YouTube and talks about being in the hospital and meeting someone in the
hospital, and the whole thing about them both being sick, and they like each, but they can't be close to one another, and like the developing relationship, and sort of like the fact that they can't be close to each other is a huge part of that film. Whereas his is more like involves so many different characters.
There's all kinds of hijinks about like movie nights and going out, and it's a camp story. You know, the similarities are probably that they're teenagers and they both have CF, right? Anyway, so they go through it step by step. I mean, it's a very long letter. Like they say, like, here's an example. The moods of the two works are remarkably different. The Flores screenplay is salacious and is full of intrigue stemming from overlapping teenage love triangles. The cast frequently uses drugs and alcohol and attends large parties and gatherings. The film, by contrast, is intimate and secluded. The two main characters are confined to a hospital, and their medical issues, treatment, and complications are prominent, resulting in a far more serious mood and tone than the Flores screenplay. There would be like obviously overlapping, but the end of the letter that taken altogether, Mr. Flores does not have any coherent theory to support his claims that his work was accessed by my clients before they created the film. Nor does Mr. Flores have a non-frivolous ground for asserting that the work are substantially similar. Furthermore, prior filing this lawsuit, Mr. Flores himself did not take the position that the film violated his rights. In fact, Mr. Flores supported the film's release, attended one of the film's premiere, posted his support for the film on social media, and made media appearances singing the film's praises. Over the course of the last several years, Mr. Flores maintained an extremely friendly and positive relationship with Mr. Baldoni, frequently texting and communicating with him. In fact, Mr. Baldoni helped Mr. Flores raise money for his medical needs, featured him on Mr. Belden's television series, My Last Days, and supported him as a friend when Mr. Flores expressed that he was personally struggling. Whatever Mr. Flores's motivations are for this recent change of heart, he doesn't have a legitimate legal position. The facts in this case are clear that there is no good faith basis for him to assert that the client took his ideas to create the film. When you look at like how differently these screenplays are, it's pretty clear that there was no copying. And they provide emails that literally show that he didn't meet this guy from this place until April of 2017. And then there's a copy of the settlement agreement. This was not confidential, so he wasn't bound by Anenda. They both agreed to hold the other harmless and waive any future claims. So if like Baldoni was going to ever sue him, he said, I'm never going to sue you. You're never going to sue me. It was a voluntary agreement. There was no admission. So the parties expressly deny any and all liability or wrongdoing. And the parties agree that nothing in this agreement shall be deemed to represent any concession or admission of such liability. They say that Travis did this on his own free will. He wasn't coerced. It's a full settlement. So what's, interesting is that there's really not communication between him and Justin. It's more like he dealt with the lawyers in the case. And then I did notice that on January 23rd of 2025, Dedra from the Daily Mail had emailed Melissa Nathan and Brian Friedman and Jennifer A.L. and for a comment, right? But she also CC'd Team Balon at Jones Works. So on January 22nd, the Daily Mail reached out for a comment. Hope all is well. I just wanted to reach out to you for a comment about US Weekly story that his attorney previously represented another client against him in 2020 lawsuit for alleged copyright infringement and breach of contract over the script for Five to Part. As noted in the story, the lawsuit over Five to Part was dismissed. Is there any other information or details you would like to include in our story? When Jennifer Ale responded, she did not CC Team at Jones Works. Okay. She CC'd Melissa, Nathan, and Brian Friedman. And then they included a statement from him, Brian. That's in the copyright infringement case. I learned that what great people Justin Wayfair were. I learned that they did absolutely nothing wrong and there was no liability on their part whatsoever. And as a result, the case was resolved without any liability on Justin's or Wayfair's or any other defendant's part. This only further confirmed to me that Justin and Wayfair are exceedingly honorable and highly ethical. That was it. Stephanie got an email that people were fishing around for a comment on the 22nd. Okay. And Brian Friedman says that Mr. Flores' surviving spouse contacts them on the 30th for their full file. What are the chances that Stephanie Jones or someone contacted his spouse and was like, hey, I heard that Mr. Friedman said something about your late spouse, and this is a conflict of interest, and maybe you should sue taking advantage of the vulnerability of a surviving spouse. Now, that's just a theory, but I just want to say that this reaction is not berating of Travis. It's not berating of the husband. It simply shows the facts, and the facts are the two scripts had nothing linked. The settlement was not because, there was a payout. There was no payment. It has the proof and the facts. It shows exactly what Brian Friedman said. I do hope that this case settles, or, not settles, but they have a hearing for it in May on this demurrer to drop the case. And I just hope before then that the spouse knows that they're being taken advantage of, or whoever told them to do this is wrong. And whoever is giving them this advice, they got wrong advice. And Blake and Stephanie really need to stop, because this is embarrassing. This is completely embarrassing. And it just makes the surviving spouse look, if they had everything and they knew everything and they had all this information, what's the point of the case then? It's clear the two shows had nothing in common. The more they try to cloud the case, the more ridiculous Blake and Stephanie look. And that's just my view. Tell me what your ideas are in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, besties.